the next day, and we were all feeling very hungover. And in the first scene, I saw a lady sitting in a blue coat in about the second row, and I said, looking a bit kind of like that. So I said to the company something like the interval, I know what we'll do.
Hi, everyone. Before we begin, let me ask you something. What if everything you thought you knew about Dame Judi Dench was only half the story? For decades, she stood before the world as Britain's untouchable treasure, a woman so powerful she could silence a theater with a single breath. Calm, graceful, above conflict. But behind the applause, behind the awards, and behind those carefully chosen interview words, Judi Dench was quietly drawing lines. And when those lines were crossed, she didn't argue, she didn't explode, she disappeared. One man crossed a boundary so deeply, so personally, that she shut him out forever. Today, you're about to discover why Dame Judi Dench truly hated him more than anyone. And once you hear this story, you'll never look at her or him the same way again. As she entered her 90s, Dench began admitting something few expected. Not everyone she worked with earned her respect. Some people didn't just challenge her creatively, they dismissed her, humiliated her, or treated her as if her mind no longer mattered. And when that happened, she didn't argue, shout, or retaliate. She simply withdrew. Once you understand who crossed those lines, you will never watch their performances alongside Judi Dench the same way again. The first name on that list is Harvey Weinstein, a man whose power once shaped careers across Hollywood. During the early 2000s, as Dench found herself once again positioned as a major awards contender, Weinstein took control of her campaign. Almost immediately, she sensed something was wrong. The publicity narrative no longer sounded like her. It leaned heavily into fragility, age, and sentiment, instead of authority, intelligence, and mastery of craft. She wasn't angry, she was curious. She simply wanted to know who was deciding how she was being presented to the world. That question led to a private meeting in Weinstein's office. When Dench suggested altering one of the campaign angles, Weinstein leaned back, smiled, and delivered a sentence that would permanently change how she viewed him. He told her to leave the thinking to them and simply show up. In that moment, something fundamental broke. Dench looked at him calmly and replied that she had been thinking for herself her entire career. There was no argument, no raised voices. She stood up, ended the meeting, and walked out. Weinstein didn't stop her. He didn't apologize. He didn't follow her out. From that day forward, Judi Dench shut him out. Contact was reduced to the bare minimum. Projects tied too closely to Weinstein were quietly declined. When interaction couldn't be avoided, strict boundaries were enforced. What shocked people inside the industry was Weinstein's reaction. A man notorious for pressure and retaliation never pushed back. He never attempted to regain control. He understood immediately that the door had closed. Years later, when his behavior became public knowledge, Dench expressed disbelief in interviews. Privately, those closest to her knew she had seen exactly who he was years earlier in that one dismissive sentence. The second name is one that still divides audiences: Daniel Day-Lewis. On paper, their collaboration should have been legendary. Two masters of their craft, sharing the same space, the same scenes. There was no scandal, no shouting, no public fallout. And yet, this was one of the few relationships Dench ended completely. From the first days on set, Day-Lewis remained sealed inside his method. He didn't greet her in the morning. He didn't acknowledge her between takes. Crew members noticed how conversation stopped when he entered, how he paced alone, avoiding eye contact unless the camera was rolling. At first, people excused it as dedication. Dench didn't. The moment everything changed came during preparation for a shared scene. She approached him quietly, script in hand, hoping to discuss pacing and emotional emphasis. He didn't look at her. He didn't respond. He didn't even say her name. After a pause, Dench said calmly that she was speaking to him, not the character. He still didn't respond. It happened in front of the entire room. Later that day, she suggested running the scene before filming. Day-Lewis refused, insisting truth could only exist inside the take. From that point on, communication froze. Crew members recalled Dench waiting between setups, hands folded, script pressed against her chest, while Day-Lewis remained unreachable, locked entirely within himself. Years later, she finally found the words to describe the experience. She said she found it difficult when people refused to acknowledge you as a human being. She never attacked his talent. Publicly, she continued to praise his work. Privately, she made a firm decision. She would never work with him again. Next comes Kenneth Branagh, a relationship that began with admiration and ended in quiet distance. Early in his career, Branagh openly revered Dench. He studied her rhythm, her discipline, her mastery of language. She respected his ambition and raw energy. For a time, they were seen as the perfect bridge between generations of British theater. But everything changed during rehearsals for one of Branagh's Shakespeare projects in the early 1990s, right as his fame was exploding. Dench arrived as she always did, fully prepared, her interpretation carefully thought through. She offered a version of a scene, expecting discussion. Instead, Branagh stopped her in front of the entire cast and crew. He dismissed her interpretation and told her she was overthinking the rhythm. He implied her approach belonged to an older way of working and suggested she should trust the speed and freshness he wanted. The room fell silent. Dench wasn't offended by disagreement. Debate had always been part of her process. What stunned her was being publicly corrected by someone who once sought her approval. From that moment on, rehearsals changed. Decisions came faster. Conversations shortened. Dench responded not with confrontation, but with precision. She tightened her work, spoke less, and withdrew. When the project ended, there was no public feud. She simply stepped away. Future collaborations never happened. Interviews mentioning Branagh became careful and neutral. Respect had been withdrawn in front of witnesses, and for Judi Dench, that line was never uncrossed. One of the most painful breaks came with Maggie Smith. For years, they were treated as a single image, two queens of the British stage, two women who had survived the same battles and earned the same reverence. Producers booked them together because they believed their bond was unbreakable. That illusion collapsed during rehearsals for a major West End production in the late 1980s. Pressure was mounting. Smith was juggling commitments and relentless press attention. Dench, as always, stayed focused on the work. During a run-through of a pivotal shared scene, Dench paused and asked a simple question about emotional timing. Smith snapped. In front of the entire cast and crew, she asked Dench if she wanted to direct the play instead. Dench said nothing, but the room went cold. What hurt wasn't the words themselves, but what they implied. That her precision was interference, that her professionalism was unwelcome. From that moment on, something fundamental changed. On stage, their performances remained flawless. Off stage, warmth vanished. When the production ended, Dench thanked everyone politely and left. She never addressed the moment publicly. In later interviews, she spoke of Smith with respect, but the affection was gone. They were never friends again. For Judi Dench, this break was one of the most painful because it came from someone who should have understood her better than anyone. The final name is Steve Coogan, and the break came not through power, but humor. They were paired on a project meant to balance wit and emotional weight. At first, it worked. Dench admired her timing. Coogan seemed impressed by her preparation. Then came an early table read. Dench paused on a scene and asked about the emotional spine of a line. Before the director could respond, Coogan cut in with a joke, saying the audience wasn't writing a thesis. The room laughed. Dench didn't. From that moment on, rehearsals shifted. Coogan improvised freely. Dench withdrew. Her notes were brushed aside with humor rather than engagement. The breaking point came when Coogan suggested trimming one of her monologues, saying the project needed more charm and less lecture. Dench closed her folder and said nothing, but the door closed permanently. They never worked together again. These weren't loud feuds or public meltdowns. They were quiet moments where respect disappeared, and once that happened, Judi Dench never let it return. So ask yourself, were these lines unforgivable, or would you have handled it differently? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned for more untold stories behind the legends you thought you knew. Thanks for watching.